Having the world's knowledge literally right at your fingertips, it's a lot like having a GPS that just instantly teleports you to your destination.
Right, like you punch in an address, you blink, and you're suddenly just standing there.
Exactly. I mean, you arrived, sure, but you never actually learned how to navigate to get there. You didn't see any landmarks. You didn't, feel the curves in the road. You have absolutely no sense of the terrain.
Yeah, you're entirely dependent on the machine.
Right. And if that teleportation device ever breaks down, you are completely stranded in your own neighborhood.
I think that captures the modern condition perfectly, honestly,
Hmm.
because we're living in this era where the lifespan of uncertainty is just incredibly brief.
Yeah, like microseconds.
Basically, between search engines, AI assistants, and those instantaneous explanatory videos, any gap in our knowledge is filled almost before we consciously register that a gap even exists.
And on the surface, I mean, that feels like a massive leap forward for human productivity, right? But today, we're taking a deep dive into a very different perspective on this whole phenomenon.
Yeah, it's quite the paradigm shift.
It really is. We are looking at the core ideas within Thesis 90, which is it's a foundational document from a modern philosophical framework out of Japan called reflective humanism.
Which is fascinating because this framework looks deeply at how our technology is actively reshaping human cognition.
Exactly. So our mission today is to explore this incredibly subtle but honestly massive shift happening in our minds. Basically, what happens to our relationship with questioning when answers are absolutely everywhere.
Well, the premise we're unpacking today is that while the sheer volume of answers in our society is expanding at this staggering rate, the fundamental act of questioning itself is actually diminishing.
Wow. So we have more answers but fewer questions.
Right, because if we treat uncertainty as this bug that needs to be instantly patched, we really have to ask what we are accidentally deleting in the process. Like, what is the hidden cost when our uncertainty is instantly erased?
That's the big question. And to really grasp the gravity of losing our questions, I think we first have to redefine where questions actually come from.
Yeah, because it's not what most people think.
Right. I think the default assumption for most of us is that a question simply comes from ignorance. There's a void, you don't know a fact, so you just ask a question to fill the void.
But reflective humanism completely flips that model. It argues that questions do not emerge from a vacuum of simply not knowing.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if they don't come from ignorance, where do they come from?
Well, as the text points out, ignorance alone doesn't generate a question. I mean, a rock is ignorant, but it doesn't ask anything.
Fair point, yeah.
The framework proposes that a question emerges from a highly specific mental state called spare capacity, or in Japanese the term is yohaku.
Yohaku.
Yeah, which translates roughly to a margin or a blank space.
Yeah.
But crucially, it's a space of pause and a space of mild discomfort.
Discomfort, like physical discomfort.
More cognitive. To form a question, you have to possess the capacity to remain with uncertainty. You have to tolerate that itchy state of non-understanding for a period of time.
Okay, let's map that to daily life for you listening right now. Think about waiting for an elevator. You press the button, and you have maybe 10 or 15 seconds of nothing to do.
Right, just standing there.
Yeah. That tiny window of time, that is the yohaku. It's that spare capacity. But the modern instinct, what do we all do?
We immediately reach into our pockets.
Exactly. You pull out your smartphone, the literal millisecond that subtle boredom hits.
And that is the perfect illustration because pulling out the phone is the exact mechanism by which we eliminate the margin. We completely eradicate the pause.
We just pave right over it.
Exactly. And without that pause, the mental environment required to cultivate a question is gone.
So if questions don't just come from a void of ignorance and they really require this pause, then mechanically speaking, what is actually triggering them in our brains during that silence?
It comes down to a concept they call the rationality of absence, or phase zero. From a cognitive standpoint, humans cannot actually observe a true negative. We can't perceive pure nothingness.
Okay, wait, what do you mean?
So instead of seeing nothing, what we perceive is the outline of what is missing. Like when you sit in that elevator without your phone,
No.
just allowing your mind to wander,
Right.
you might notice a logical inconsistency in a conversation you had earlier, or maybe a gap in a project you're planning. You aren't seeing the solution, you're observing the shape of the missing piece.
Oh, wow. I love that. Observing the shape of the missing piece.
Yeah, a question is born from sitting in that silence and tracing that outline, rather than immediately rushing to shove any piece of data into the gap,
Yeah.
just to relieve the tension.
You actually have to sit with the empty space. But, I mean, looking at our world, our entire digital infrastructure is built to do the exact opposite.
Oh, entirely. We are living in a high-speed rectification society.
Yeah. Every app, every feed, every AI tool is meticulously engineered to rapidly fill any perceived gap in our understanding. And because of this velocity, questions are effectively answered before they can even fully form in our minds.
Right, the system answers the question before you even know what you're asking.
But I do have to ask, and I'm sure someone listening right now is thinking this, isn't speed generally a good thing? Like, if I'm under my kitchen sink and a pipe bursts, I don't want to sit in the quote-unquote discomfort of the unknown and trace the outline of my ignorance.
No, definitely not.
Right. I want a 10-second tutorial on how to shut off the valve. So why should we romanticize the struggle of not knowing?
Well, there's a vital distinction to make here between a purely utilitarian task and the process of cognitive growth. A bursting pipe requires a mechanical action.
Okay, fair enough.
But when we apply that same emergency patch mindset to our broader understanding of the world, we run into real trouble. The critical loss here isn't the answer itself. The loss is the time it takes for a complex question to solidify.
The time itself is the asset.
Exactly. Human consciousness isn't just a server processing data inputs. It operates on a biological rhythm of perception. It's like a breath. There's an inhalation of the world, a pause, and then an exhalation of meaning.
I see. So by instantly demanding the answer, we're effectively like hyperventilating on facts.
That is a great way to put it, yeah.
Well, you're just skipping the pause entirely.
And when you skip the pause, you short-circuit the natural incubation period where true discovery actually happens. You lose the time required for a very shallow curiosity to deepen into a profound inquiry.
Because you didn't let it marinate.
Right. When uncertainty has no time to exist, we essentially condition our brains to accept the fastest plausible explanation rather than the most deeply considered one.
Which honestly leads us directly into the danger of this short-circuiting. We start to mistake the speed and the confidence of an answer for absolute truth.
Yes, exactly.
We get caught in this illusion of completion.
Psychologists actually refer to this as cognitive closure. A really profound behavioral pattern emerges here, where people rarely stop questioning because they have actually discovered the ultimate objective truth of a matter.
Really? Then why do they stop?
They stop questioning because they feel they understand. The friction is gone, the mental gap feels patched, and so the cognitive process just shuts down.
Oh, wow. Okay, to make this concrete, let's look at one of the most famous engineering failures in history, the Titanic.
Oh, perfect example.
Right. The shipbuilders and the public had achieved cognitive closure on the concept of maritime safety. They firmly believed they had the quote-unquote answer to sinking, which was watertight compartments.
Right, they felt completely secure.
Exactly. Because they felt they understood buoyancy and safety so perfectly, the friction was gone. The question of, well, what happens if a catastrophic breach spans multiple compartments? That was never fully explored because the feeling of understanding completely shut down the exploration.
That is a brilliant historical parallel.
Mm-hmm.
The illusion of safety literally replaced the active questioning of safety. And the structural implication of this on a broad societal scale is severe.
How so?
Well, when premature cognitive closure becomes the default state of a society, our accumulated knowledge increases, sure, but our capacity for discovery drops. We possess more explanations today than at any point in human history, but the act of contemplation, the act of observing our own understanding and actively looking for the flaws that plummets.
It's like eating cognitive fast food.
Oh, yeah.
Like you eat a giant bag of potato chips and you feel entirely stuffed. You aren't actually nourished, your body hasn't gained what it needs, but the mechanical sensation of hunger is gone. So you just stop exploring the menu.
You stop looking for real food.
Right. You just feel stuffed with understanding.
And when learning entirely replaces exploration like that, people might hoard all these perfect little facts and answers, but they lose the entrance to reconnect with the changing world. Their worldview just becomes this closed loop.
So if cognitive closure freezes our worldview like that, how do we saw it out?
This is where the framework introduces a completely different definition of what a question actually is.
Okay.
That doesn't treat a question as a lock, waiting for an answer to act as a key where the lock is then just discarded once it's open. It defines a question as a technology to maintain unclosedness.
Technology to maintain unclosedness, so it's a
The
doorstop.
doors stop, exactly. It literally keeps the door of reality from shutting and locking us into a rigid perspective.
I love that visual. So, to understand how that doorstop functions, I guess we have to look at the underlying mechanics, neurologically and psychologically. When you hold a question in your mind without immediately resolving it, your brain physically remains in a state of active pattern recognition.
Yes, you are continuously scanning your environment for anomalies and new information.
Because holding the question prevents your neural pathways from solidifying into just a rigid assumption,
Right. It forces a continuous loop.
a recursive spiral.
Yes. Question leads to observation. Observation leads to a revision of your understanding, and that revision naturally generates a new question.
But to keep that spiral moving smoothly, we have to interact with the friction of reality. And the reflective humanism framework contrasts two distinct ways our minds handled these updates about the world: collision generation versus question generation.
Which is a crucial distinction.
Okay, let's break down collision generation first. This happens when you don't have that doorstop, right? Your internal model of the world has become completely rigid because you assume you have all the answers.
Right, cognitive closure.
Yeah, but the external world is constantly shifting. So eventually, your rigid internal model and the fluid external reality are going to violently intersect.
And that intersection creates a very sharp phase difference. Because your mind wasn't open to subtle changes, the external reality forces a sudden, steep update to your understanding.
Ouch.
Yeah, it's discontinuous, and it causes immense psychological pain. It generates heat and friction. Your growth isn't natural. It's violently forced upon you by circumstances.
It's like building a house on a rigid concrete foundation in an earthquake zone.
Oh, that's good.
It feels perfectly stable, solid, and secure, right up until a massive tectonic shift just shatters the entire structure. The collapse forces you to realize the ground was moving, but the realization is devastating. That is collision generation.
Contrast that with question generation.
Yeah.
When you maintain questions, when you keep that cognitive doorstop firmly in place, you refuse to freeze your understanding into a rigid foundation. You keep the gradient of change gentle.
Because you're constantly looking.
Right. You're making constant micro-adjustments based on new observations.
So instead of the rigid concrete foundation, question generation is like building a skyscraper on those shock absorbers and base isolators.
Exactly.
You feel the microtremors, the building sways with the wind and the minor quakes. You are constantly adjusting to the movement of the earth, so when a larger shift happens, the house actually stays standing.
The framework beautifully describes a question as a pain minimization device.
Pain minimization, that makes so much sense.
Because by keeping the gradient gentle and staying in active pattern recognition, the recursive loop isn't broken. We can continuously update our understanding of the world without the shock, the friction, and the trauma of those sudden forced realizations.
The spiral of our understanding gently changes its angle and just rises quietly, constantly adapting.
Right.
So bringing this back to you, the listener, if you let your questions atrophy because Google or an AI give you a quick, satisfying summary, you're effectively pouring concrete over your own shock absorbers.
You're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, you get stuck in one rigid, fixed version of reality, completely setting yourself up for a massive collision down the line.
And, that risk scales up from the individual mind to society as a whole.
Of course.
A society that preserves its questions remains adaptable and resilient. A society without questions risks total fixation and ideological rigidity. Reflective humanism states a core thesis here. We must prioritize gradients over evaluation and trajectories over fixed points.
Trajectories over fixed points. That means it's far less important to be perfectly, quote-unquote, right in this exact isolated second, which is a fixed point, and much more important to be moving in a direction where you are constantly learning, observing, and updating, which is a trajectory.
Precisely. Human perception shouldn't be about slapping a final label of good or bad, true or false on the world, and then just walking away.
Right.
When we do that, the field of generation solidifies, and that vital spiral of recursion is lost. Keeping questions alive allows us to continuously tune our resonance with the world.
It's like tuning an instrument.
Yes. Think of your mind as an inner operating system that requires constant, gentle updates. Without the recursive loop of questioning, we lose our cognitive plasticity. We lose our very ability to adapt to a changing environment.
It's just an incredible paradox. I mean, we've built all of this miraculous technology to give us absolute certainty instantly. But this deep dive is telling us that absolute certainty is actually a trap.
It solidifies the field.
It primes us for collisions. So if that is true, then how are we supposed to interact with all these answer machines we've built? How do we use AI without letting it destroy our capacity to question?
Well, the framework suggests a completely different paradigm for interacting with technology. AI should not be utilized merely as an answer machine. It should act as an atmospheric health scan.
An atmospheric health scan. Okay, walk us through a tangible example of what that actually looks like in practice. How do you use an AI as a health scan?
So imagine you've drafted a highly complex argument for an important email or a proposal. The standard answer machine approach would be to feed a few bullet points to an AI and say, write this email for me.
Which everyone does.
Right. And that provides immediate cognitive closure. The friction is gone, but your thinking process is entirely shut down.
You got the result, but you lost the trajectory.
Exactly. The health scan approach is entirely different. You write the draft yourself, wrestling with the friction and the yohaku.
You do the hard work.
Yeah. Then you give it to the AI and prompt it. Do not rewrite this. Show me where my logical leaps are. Point out my blind spots. Tell me what counterarguments I haven't considered.
Oh, that's brilliant.
You're using the technology as a reflective surface to show you where you are currently positioned in your thought process.
So the goal isn't to solve the problem for you. The goal is to tune your cognitive homeostasis. It's using machine to generate better questions, to help you maintain that gentle gradient of micro-adjustments we talked about.
Yes, it creates an environment that respects the ethics of distance,
The ethics of distance.
meaning the technology is touching your thought process without invading it, supporting your ability to remain with what is not yet understood, rather than just eradicating the unknown for you.
It's helping you trace the outline of that missing puzzle piece with greater precision, rather than just forcing a prefabricated piece into the whole so you can feel the satisfaction of being finished. It actively supports the silence.
Which forces us to look even deeper at the root of what is slipping away in our hyper-accelerated lives. If we trace the trajectory of this entire conversation, we started by worrying about the loss of our questions. But reflective humanism pushes us one step further back into the mind.
Right, because perhaps what is truly disappearing isn't the act of asking a question itself. When we look at our relationship with the search bar, with the constant feed of information, maybe what we are truly losing is the tolerance for that small discomfort. That tiny, subtle friction, that little itch of not knowing that exists just before a question is even formed. The pause, the spare capacity.
We are losing the ability to sit in the blank space and feel the outline of what is missing, without immediately demanding that the void be filled. We're losing the yohaku.
It entirely reframes how you look at the devices surrounding you right now. We've engineered a world that detects and eradicates that small discomfort the very millisecond it appears.
The second you feel it, you reach for your phone.
Yes. But if that discomfort is the actual engine of our adaptability, if holding on to the unknown is the pain minimization device that keeps us deeply connected to a changing reality, then actively removing it from our lives might be the most dangerous thing we can do to our own minds.
It really leaves us with a critical reflection for our modern condition. It fundamentally challenges the direction our technology is sprinting toward and asks us to evaluate what we are sacrificing for the sake of frictionless answers.
It really does. And we promised at the beginning of this deep dive that we wouldn't wrap this up with a neat, highly satisfying little bow because, well, providing premature cognitive closure would violate everything we just explored.
We have to leave the doorstop in place.
We want to leave the doorstop firmly in place for you. So as you go back to your day, surrounded by screens and algorithms perfectly designed to give you absolutely any explanation you could possibly want, we want to leave you with this final thought to sit with in the silence. Do humans truly need more answers faster? Or do we desperately need the ability to remain with what has not yet been answered?